Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself in the world watching this brand new episode on the Sportycast YouTube channel. This is episode 1 of the Red Talk podcast, and I will be hosting it. I'm your host, AF. We will be talking news, reviews, and analysis, statistics about Manchester United. And this one has been in the works for a long while. I've been reaching out to my online buddy for a few months now, trying to get him onto the channel. But with him sitting in Australia, it's been a bit of a logistical nightmare. So yeah, without further ado, introducing Adam Joseph. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me. Yeah, very difficult to make happen with the time difference where you are, where I am. But really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that 8 hour time difference, it really is a bit of a battle to make things happen. But yeah, I'm just excited to finally start getting into Manchester United, into what's been happening with them. But as is customary with the Sportycast YouTube channel, anytime a guest comes on for the very first time, we give them a bit of an icebreaker. And normally over on the 343 football podcast, it's a generalized football question, but this one will be Manchester United centric. So, Adam, you've been watching Manchester United for a while now, and is there a player who stands out that you would have wanted to play football with at Manchester United over the past 30 years or so?
Oh, that's a great question. I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, early days for me. I mean, if we're just talking favorite players, but I mean, I guess as a junior, I was a striker, so I would have loved to have played with Dwight York. As a, I don't know, when I started playing seniors, I was a defender, so I think I would have loved to have played with a leader and a defender like Nemanja Vidic. So either or, would have loved to have partnered either of those.
I can see you going in for some really hectic, crazy tackles like Nemanja Vidic, like taking no prisoners.
More on the side of recklessness, but yeah, who doesn't love a good slide tackle, a well-timed slide tackle? I've only ever had one go badly, so yeah.
I trust it wasn't too bad for the opposition player.
We were playing in quite a sketchy location, and I crunched this guy with a slide tackle, and I accidentally broke his foot. And his mates that were watching were waiting for me in the car park after the game. So yeah, had to diffuse that. But yeah, that's just sometimes things happen on the field and accidents happen. But if I wish I could have told them that I would break my foot not too long later and then re-break it 3 times after that. So I guess it all comes back around.
Man, I hope you've been healthy since then.
Yeah, just was a little bit too enthusiastic to get back out on the field. So
yeah,
just the way it goes.
Nice one, man. Yeah, so moving on with our agenda, and we're just gonna go off football for a little bit. If you want to keep it football related, you can. But since the season concluded back in May, what have you been keeping up with? Has it been sports related? Has it been football related? Has it been? I see you have Marvel Studios Infinity Saga behind you. I'm very much a comic book guy as well. So have you been keeping up with non-football related activity?
Always. So when I was doing my prep for today, I was thinking about how do I answer this one? So I could go in a variety of directions.
Yeah.
So my sports calendar is nonstop. There isn't really ever a break, much to the chagrin of my wife. So, you know, I got to watch Oklahoma City, my NBA team. I got to watch them win their first NBA title, which was really amazing. I used to cover the team back in my media days. So that was really special. And then my Aussie Rules team here is a bit of a joke, and we're struggling at the moment. So following the summer with Manchester United has kept me pretty busy and distracted. And I'm pretty checked out on my team. I'm pretty much as obsessed with every team I follow as I am Manchester United. despite my Twitter presence. That's really for one purpose these days. But yeah, nothing really changes for me. You just sort of keep following the club along. The other thing, devoted moviegoer, love a trip to the cinema. So been plenty of times. I think I went 7 times in 1 month earlier this year. So yeah, just a variety of things, mate. And then when the season finishes, it's not staying up late to watch games or getting up early. So probably just putting a little bit more time into being a husband.
Nice.
So just spend time with my wife and my friends and not being as tired as I am for 9 or 10 months of the year.
I love that. I love that. How do you actually manage that? Like, I mean, Manchester United, the timings that they have compared to the timings over in Melbourne, how do you actually like manage that schedule?
It gets tougher as you get older, and you realize that you're not the man you were 10 years ago. But you sort of just make do, I think. I sort of just plan around it. The role I'm in now that I'm no longer working in the media full time or anything like that allows me a bit of flexibility. And I work from home, which helps as well. So that tired face doesn't look as obvious in a Microsoft Teams meeting as it might in person. And lots of caffeine, but I've never operated on a lot of sleep. So that helps me be chronically online, which you sort of have to be following the news and things like that. It's not easy, but it's also like you can plan things around it. Games always finish before 8 a.m. But it's probably when they play the late games on Saturdays and they're playing at like 4:30 in the morning or 2:30 in the morning. Not so ideal when you're just sitting around sober. It's like staying up late when you're going out with your mates and things like that is a bit easier to stay up when you're on the sauce or something like that. But yeah, as you age, it's a little bit more difficult to sit there on the couch and watch games. But no, you just find a way. You find a way. I get like no matter how bad the club has been, no matter what a joke they've been, I always look forward to games. There's always a reason to be optimistic. You know me from social media that I tend to see the best in things. I'm very much a glass half full sort of fan. My whole thing is I can't live in that negative space as a football fan and a sports fan in general. It just drags me down.
Yeah.
It's just not why I got into it. So I'll always sort of see the best in things in that regard. So you just make do, mate. You just figure it out. My friends are all parents now or becoming parents, and if they can do it with kids, I can do it with my sports teams. And so yeah, you just figure it out.
I love that. I love your way of thinking. I'll keep that in mind the longer I get older as well, because yeah, I am in Cape Town following Golden State Warriors, sometimes playing at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning. So yeah, you have to make do. Moving over to a deal that we've seen concluded or almost concluded over the last couple of days, and that is Bryan Mbeumo. But we started showing interest or started showing that we really want this player around about the 2nd of July. Um, it was it 2nd of July or was it earlier than that? I can't remember. I think it's been about like 6 weeks that they've been chasing him. It's finally starting to come to a conclusion, but there's been this inability from our negotiating team, whether that's Jason Wilcox and Umar Barada and whoever else is involved in the process. And it seems like we end up paying the same price that they've initially wanted. I don't know if that's come from the Besser move to out of Brentford as well, that sort of forced their hands. But yeah, let's just speak a bit about uh, the Bryan Mbeumo deal and how our negotiating team hasn't really been doing what we thought they would have done.
Yeah, I guess I see both sides of it. We get frustrated because we just want things to happen. When you find out, Matthias Cunha on June 1st, Bryan Mbeumo on June 2nd, you just think that the transfer window is going to roll. But with the Club World Cup and traditionally knowing that the market gets going in July, I guess sometimes the doldrums of the off season can come into play. You just want things to happen. You see Man City and Liverpool making moves. You see Chelsea making moves. It's impossible not to compare. It's just like the human state. You're always going to compare yourself to others, even though you shouldn't. And so my first question with that whole thing, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, end to end, and isn't a good look. But I guess my response is it though? Because, Brentford changed stance. So Manchester United were given the impression that second bid was going to be the one that would be accepted. They set their marker with the first bid, which is sort of traditional with the negotiations, sort of the price that the range that they're thinking. Brentford then changed stance. So whether that was just because they thought they could get more, or they saw more from other clubs with the other deals that were happening, either way, they shifted the goalposts. A little bit of bad faith business, but they're more than within their right. And Mbeumo is a spectacular player, much better than the players in that comparable price range, in my opinion. Certainly in terms of proven talent, if not, I think those other players were younger, so there's more of a potential aspect with those buys. So, preseason started last week. So we're at the end of the second week of preseason now. And Mbeumo only returned to Brentford on Monday. And that would have been the case if he'd signed for Manchester United. So if we think about it that way, he's missed a week. He's missed the game against Leeds. He would have played a half, of match fitness. He's done the training at Brentford. It seems like we might get an announcement today. I've got my phone right here. Should something happen, with all of that said, and it's very likely he goes on tour, you would hope that they'd plan in advance to have a visa and the contract's done, so there's not going to be an issue for him to get on the plane on Tuesday to the US. I think the devil's in the details on that one. So, like, the wait is frustrating. You can look at the overall fee and be like, oh, we got rinsed and got taken for a ride. We bent over the demands, but did we? Because what I took most from David Ornstein's tweet was that it's going to be 4 installments. And that's
about
exactly
16 million a year.
Yeah. We haven't had that confirmed. I think we've just averaged out the guaranteed fee that way. That's in terms of amortization. It'll be, over the 5 years of the contract that he's going to sign through 2030. But yeah, I'm more concerned about that aspect. And I think that's what they were pushing for all this time. It's the same with the Xerxes deal last year. What they tried to do with the Matthias Cunha deal is get the favorable terms in the short term, even if it means paying more in the long term. When you're earning revenue, 10, 11, 12 times as much as the fee, you don't really have to worry about a few million over the course of 5 years or 4 years. So that's probably my biggest takeaway. I understand the other reactions, although I'm not very understanding about it on social media. I would just, temper it with a bit of caution. And the most important thing is they've got the player. He's going to do the whole bonding of a preseason tour with his teammates in nice and tight for a couple of weeks, plenty of games, plenty of training, 2-a-day sessions, things like that. Let's just be happy it's done because it's a really, really good signing.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see if Newcastle still go for somebody like Jan Wissa, because I think that they had similar seasons. If you look at their statistics from last season, Wissa and Mbeumo, I think Mbeumo finished with 27 goals and assists in the Premier League, and Wissa ended on about 24, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty similar. Mbeumo obviously got the bigger price tag slapped on him, but now with Newcastle seemingly keeping Alexander Isak, I don't know if the Wissa move is still going to stay intact. But I think we've got the better play out of the two. I really like Mbeumo. I like his football IQ is amazing, and I think it's something that United needs so badly, because there's so many players who tend to ignore the easier passes most of the time, and that was apparent in the game yesterday as well. But we'll chat about that in a bit. But yeah, just to wrap up on the Mbeumo stuff, I think it's a good deal. Like you said, 4 installments. I think it works for us right now with PSR, with our financial situation, and I think it's a good base for Manchester United to build on now for the rest of the window. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I can't wait to see him join up with the team. I think his medical is penciled in for sometime this afternoon, UK time. So we'll probably get some notifications around about tonight. You'll probably be sleeping. It'll probably be 4 a.m. or so in the morning for you. But yeah, let's keep an eye on that one. There are a few players who are on the way out of Manchester United. We've seen it's Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Anthony, Alejandro Garnacho, and I think it's Tyrell Malacia. Those are the five who won't be joining the team on preseason, who's sort of been told to train on their own at Carrington. Um, let's start with Marcus Rashford first. We've got a year we go from Fabrizio Romano yesterday, him off to Barcelona on a loan deal with an option to buy. I would have hoped that it would have been an obligation to buy because we know Amarim starts on Rashford. There probably is no way for him back in this team. Um, what are your thoughts on that deal?
Yeah, very surprising that it would be done this soon. I certainly thought that if you had asked me at the start of June how things are going to go, I would have said that Sancho and Rashford would be the ones to drag out to the end of August just because of the leverage that rival clubs would have. But I guess the factor I didn't consider, and it was mentioned in some of the reporting yesterday, is that Barcelona will have him for their preseason and their tour, and it's equally as important for those clubs to get those players in. So if you feel like you can get the right deal done and you can expend all the leverage that you've got, and maybe Barcelona feel like they've done that, being that it's a loan. But the thing about it for me, I'm curious to see if there's any loan fee involved that takes down any potential fee at the end. Like, so do United take a discount to get in some cash now? So there's been mixed reporting between the 30 million and 40 million buy option. It's a tricky one because of his age. Selling an asset like that becomes trickier. There's just, for some reason, there seems like a difference between 27 and 28, and
Yeah,
how much you're going to pay for that player. I'm really happy about the wages aspect, saving what United would have had planned and 15 million in cash on those wages this year is a big bonus to what they can do this summer, and just the flexibility that opens up. Obviously, the reports and the discussion, and I've spoken about this a lot, about being cash poor is more of a problem than PSR. So really good in that aspect. Probably worth keeping in mind that while Rashford has taken a wage cut, Spanish footballers do only get taxed 24%, as opposed to what the UK do, which is quite a bit more. So he can afford to take he'll make more by getting taxed less. So that is a factor there. No, I think it's a really good deal. I think it's a really good deal for him. So on a more personal level, I probably don't have as toxic a relationship with him as a lot of fans clearly do. It's a nuclear radioactive subject online. I'm very hesitant to get into it most of the time. It just doesn't seem worthwhile. But no, I think it's a good deal. Uh, you can't say great deal. There's no obligation. There's no guaranteed sum coming in.
yeah.
But what you can count on at least um, is the short term, and I think that sort of is the priority. And so if they're getting it done now, that sort of speaks to that for me. So I'm not sure what you think, but no, I think that's all right.
Yeah, so I mean, there's no fighting with the fact that Marcus Rashford, when he's good, when he's on song, he's one of the best around. And I mean, he's had amazing seasons for us, 30 goal plus seasons. But he's also had those seasons where he hasn't really performed, and he walked into the sort of position where he became our talisman at sometimes, and he'd be the person that people would look to for something to happen, not to do something on the pitch. And I think that's where a lot of the fans' frustrations come from, where he just had these seasons where he just couldn't really try as hard as other seasons. When the going got tough for him, then he sort of would have just like jogged about and not really tried as hard. But when he's on song, he's really like one of the best around. And we've seen how Anthony performed so well in La Liga. If Anthony can do that in La Liga, then Marcus Rashford is going to absolutely run the place, run riot in the La Liga league. And one thing that I can't wait to watch is Rashford up against Trent Alexander-Arnold in the El Clasico, and I think he's going to absolutely rinse him. Trent probably thought, okay, I'm finally rid of this guy, because he's noted as saying that like Rashford is one of the worst people for him to defend against, and now it's followed him over to Spain as well. So that's gonna be box office in the El Clasico. But just moving over to Anthony, I just spoke about him. Excuse me. I just spoke about him now, and I think that he is a person who wants to play regardless. He is. Well, there was a report that came out that said that he wants to. You take a wage cut. He doesn't matter what happens. He just wants to play football, and he loved his time over at Betis. I think Man United. I read something last night. I don't know if it's true. I didn't verify it or anything, but uh, they were so impressed with his time over at Betis that they are willing to like raise his transfer fee now. So I don't think that's a good idea. If they're raising his transfer fee, that's going to put clubs off, and eventually we are going to be stuck with Anthony. So, from your point of view, do you think that it's a case where United have to lower the fee just to try and make this deal happen?
No, I don't think so. It's only, July 20th at the time of recording. So I guess the way that I see it is that you can sort of wait it out a bit longer, particularly with the Rashford and Sancho deals accelerating much faster than expected. It looks like, we'll speak about Alejandro Garnacho, I'm sure, that will also evolve pretty quickly now that we're into preseason. So I don't think you need to do that. I think it's more likely that they'll try and draw other clubs into it, which we're starting to get an idea of. I think, Betis had sort of like a default first option because of the tenure of the deal. Probably the only issue with that is they just can't afford it. They just don't seem willing. And Johnny Cardoso has completed his move to Atletico Madrid. Does it open up more money? But Betis are a notoriously poor financial
Yeah,
club. Their transfer record is before the turn of the millennium. For Danielson, they haven't spent anything like that since, which is what they need to outspend to get a deal done for Anthony. So I'm still pretty cynical on that one. It seems like it's very complicated by the agents and things like that. So Sport Witness have done some really good aggregate reporting on that. So I'm more inclined to think that other clubs will come into it, whether it's Atletico Madrid or elsewhere. But he had a good loan spell, so that tells you if he can find other bidders, it should be okay. Otherwise, Betis are the sort of club who can draw it out because they have to, because they're their own situation and try and get another loan. Whether they could do a loan with an obligation to buy, which gets a loan fee now, wages covered, sort of similar to last season, that's an option. But ultimately, I think the club was planning and hoping to sell him permanently this summer, and they're
yeah.
probably banking on that financially. So fingers crossed.
I think the Bayer Leverkusen rumors could come to fruition eventually, especially after they lost yesterday to Flamengo under 20. They could be looking to sort of get some more players in, and it's no secret that Ten Hag loves Anthony. I think what also hurt Anthony's chances of securing more admirers was the fact that in that um, Conference League final against Chelsea, like he performed extremely well in La Liga, and then the moment he comes back up against Premier League opposition, he sort of didn't reach that same level once again. And I think there was a lot of chatter online about, like, I've seen like two or three reports where people weren't really impressed with him after that. He sort of just like went down a few levels, and I feel like if he had performed even just a little bit better than what he did in that final, there would be more people in for him, because it would have been that, okay, he's performed well in La Liga, but he can still maintain that sort of performance or that skill level against a top Premier League opposition. So yeah, it's one to watch, and it's something that I think Manchester United will want to get down before this window ends. Uh, Else, it's going to be a bit of a headache to reintegrate him into the team post September 2nd. I think that's when the window closes. But yeah, Jaden Sancho. Let's just touch on Jaden Sancho and Malacia real quick, and then we can end off with Garnacho. The Malacia one, I there hasn't that's been the most quiet one out of the five of them. I think it's just like all said and done that he's going to be out, but there hasn't really been any rumors or reports really that he's he's gotten anybody in for him. The only thing that I've seen is that he wants to go back to the Eredivisie, so they're probably going to try and shop around over there in that league to see who might be of interest for him. And then Jadon Sancho is linked with Juventus. I saw that personal terms are agreed over there. They are looking for a 25 million euro deal for him. Juventus don't want to really pay that high. So yeah, it's probably going to come back to some negotiating from Wilcox and Berardi on that one as well.
Yeah, I think with Sancho, probably the only thing I'm looking out for is a little more reporting that's Manchester based. It's been very much Italy, which is telling me that it's agent driven. The price point is probably the curiosity to me. It's clear there's going to be a payoff that Sancho is going to receive, just because of the crazy wages he's got remaining. So if you can just get a fee, like, probably between 15 and 20 million euros feels like the sweet spot, just to get that done. And then hypothetically, you use some of that Chelsea obligation payoff to complete his payoff. And then as far as Malacia goes, I think that's heading towards a potential buyout or a termination. So he's only got, a year going on his contract. It's about £3 million or so in wages. So if you can find another club to buy him at a minimal fee or no fee, you just balance it out with the payoff that they would do with a buyout or termination, sort of what Juventus are trying to do with Vlahovic. But yeah, they both seem sort of straightforward, but they're going to happen very differently.
100%. And the thing is, I read this morning about Raheem Sterling. Chelsea won 20 million for him. So I think our negotiating team is going to look at reports like that, and they are going to be thinking, okay, people are paying 20 million for Raheem Sterling, then surely Jadon Sancho, who came into that Chelsea team last season, and he was, as much as people don't want to admit it, he was quite an important part of that last 2 months of Chelsea season. He contributed a lot to their goals and to their assists. So if Raheem Sterling is going for 20 million, Manchester United are going to come in saying, okay, if Raheem Sterling's worth 20 million, then surely Jadon Sancho is going to be worth a little bit more than that.
Yeah, the trick is the wages and the performance in his time at the club. I think Sterling's got a better track record. Also, Chelsea are a better selling club. When you're a successful club, not only at selling players, but successful on the pitch, it just makes it easier to get deals done, where United are pretty much the polar opposite of what Chelsea have been as a selling club. It just makes it so much harder. That's a reputation that's just going to take a fair bit of time to turn around.
Yeah, 100%. Final transfer that we want to speak about is Alejandro Garnacho. And I think this is the one that's frustrating the United fans a lot, because he's young. We should be demanding a bigger fee for him. There's probably going to be something like a sell-on clause or something like they put in for Alvaro Carreras, who's recently gone to Real Madrid. Anthony Elanga, who's recently gone to Newcastle. So I think the frustrating part is the fact that we know the talent that's there, we know the player that he's going to become, but he thinks that he's that player already. Which, I mean, you have to put in the hard yards to get there, man.
Well, sometimes your ambition can outweigh your talent, and yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky one. I would say that they're hoping to draw an auction out of Chelsea, Spurs, and Villa, who appear to be the most seriously interested clubs. That Tottenham have spent on Mohamed Kudus and things like that makes you think that they're probably less serious. But if you can just draw out, and it's clear that both Villa and Chelsea are interested, you can probably fetch a modest fee compared to what we might have expected, say, 12 months ago. So I would say it's between those two, more likely Chelsea being the London factor as opposed to Villa, but living in the Midlands. It just seems like that matters to him, as well as the fact that there's Champions League football on offer. I would say Chelsea are the most likely. Unfortunately, Chelsea are very stern negotiators, and Villa's financial situation isn't super ideal still. They're always going to be up against it because of their wages to turnover ratio. under the current PSR model. So it makes it a little bit more complicated, but all you need is 2 clubs for an auction sometimes. So that's what they'll be banking on.
Yeah, and we've seen Napoli in the fray as well, but Garnacho wants to stay in the Premier League. That's his intention. But if, for example, Manchester United don't want to sell him to a rival Premier League club, which I don't think that they should, I feel like that's not the way Manchester United have operated in the past, like 20, 30 years. I can't imagine Sir Alex Ferguson taking prime Ronaldo and selling him, or a young Ronaldo. Instead of going to Real Madrid, he would be going to Arsenal or Man City or Chelsea, for example, Chelsea under Mourinho. I can't imagine that happening. So I would want him to instead go to Napoli, for example.
The difficulty as well is it sounds like Garnacho's wage demands is he's intentionally raised his wage demands to stay in the Premier League. And I think the difference with some of the Premier League clubs now as opposed to, 15, 20 years ago with Sir Alex is the financial difference now and the gap between the Premier League and everyone else, whereas like an Aston Villa can now afford what Atletico Madrid can't or shouldn't. So that's certainly a factor, not to mention Manchester United's loss in standing amongst the Premier League. So I think it sort of forced their hand, both the way the clubs handled it and their financial situation. And I think because of the way that things have gone with Garnacho, I've always sort of been okay with selling him wherever, and you live with it because you know that at the time that selling him is the right decision. And that's my take on it. I don't think there should be any regrets. They need players pulling in the same direction right now. They need a tight-knit squad, and Ruben Amorim said it's going to be small this season, the squad. They need everyone pulling in the right direction if they're going to turn this around as quickly as they'd like.
Yeah, I like that. I saw that he said that he wants a smaller squad to work with, and I mean, with one less competition, it's only the Premier League, the League Cup, and the FA Cup that they will be challenging in. So you don't need that much depth in your squad. Just wrapping that one up, we can move on to the game yesterday, Manchester United versus Leeds. It was the first preseason game, and I think I'm going to let you start on this one. What were your thoughts like in terms of we had a completely different starting 11 compared to the 11 that came out in the second half? Did you have a preference between the two? But firstly, just like what was your thinking with that starting 11? How did they gel together? Seeing that it's the first game, there are a couple of players who came in who's never played with this lot before. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, I don't take preseason too seriously. Probably more so the back end of the tour once they've had some time together. They've only been back a couple of weeks, a week altogether, being the late arrival of some players. I preferred the second half for sure. I think, for one, the back three of Heaven, Maguire, and Yoro just seems like probably the starting three they might have longer term as we get into the season. I thought Matthias Cunha's point of difference was obvious in the first half with his ball carrying and his dribbling. We haven't had that since like pandemic football under Ole. Diego Leon was really promising. A couple of nervous moments defensively, but his combinations with Cunha were really nice. Mainu and Dorgu were superb in the second half. You could see between those two and Lenny Yoro, the physical difference they've added over the off season, and that's really promising going into this season, particularly for Dorgu, who seems to have a much better physical grounding going into his first full season in the Premier League. And then I thought, Tom Heaton was really solid. Probably not someone who should be contending for a starting position at the moment with Andre Onana sidelined, but we are where we are. And then, Diogo Dalot, Manuel Ugarte, they were solid, not spectacular. But I'm never one to take too much away from this stuff. What about you?
I pretty much echo your sentiment about the second half. I think the fact that majority of the players within the second half are players who have played together before. Patrick Dorgu for me was the standout player in that second half. I think the improvement in there is for everybody to see. Even though it's the first game in preseason, he just looks physically better. I spoke about football IQ earlier in this episode, and I think that his selection of finding players and decision making was so much better in that 45 than what I've seen from him towards the latter end of last season. So yeah, it's a lot to build on over there. Diego Leon, very promising, but I think he has tons to learn. There were a lot of times when he was pushing very high up, but he wasn't tracking back. But I mean, the kid is 18 years old, so there's a ton of education on available for him. There were a couple of times when Ruben Amorim was out there shouting at him to trying to get him to get back. So yeah, it's going to be a very good case study for him to try and take and work towards how he can be better. Um, I I think by the end of this preseason, we could be seeing him going out on loan. Um, because if Patrick Dogu, Luke Shaw, they could possibly be our left wing backs, with Heaven and Leacher being the left centre backs. Um, that's just my thinking. But yeah, Casemiro, he looked okay, but there were times when he was sort of just like jogging around, not really tracking his man. His link up with Cunha was good though. Uh, I mean, that's a given. They played together over in Brazil before, so I'm not surprised by that. But we really need to. If I'm just moving on to key areas for us to work on um, before this window shuts, I think we are crying out for a really fast and fluid centre midfielder.
Yeah, get me an athletic, ground eating midfielder ASAP. Amarim said it post game. They clearly lack speed in the midfield, so they need an athlete in there. It's been well reported. Laurie well spoke about it earlier in the transfer window that Ruben Amorim wants an athletic midfielder. So they've just got to find out and get that done. So we'll find out who that is soon enough. We haven't had a lot in terms of midfield targets, maybe Javi Guerra from Valencia, but that isn't completely entirely substantiated yet. Yeah, those are the key areas. You asked me before we started, key areas to focus on for the team post-match. Get some training together. Get those outgoings done so you can get some incomings.
Yeah.
Because we need new players. And, you only had, was it 2 starting yesterday? So, yeah, just got to keep the work going.
Yeah, there's been links with Adam Wharton. There's, as you mentioned, Javi Guerra. I saw Pedro Almeida, the Portuguese insider. I don't know if he is a journalist or not, but he keeps on showing up on my Twitter feed with all of these transfer news and links. But he's punted Morten Hielman, who obviously Amarim knows from Sporting, and then one that I saw yesterday was Carlos Baliba from Brighton, who I think would be the best out of the lot. He's Premier League proven. You just mentioned eating ground. The guy doesn't stop running, and he hounds players in the center of the park, and we need somebody who does just that. So if I could pick my midfielder signing, it would be Carlos Baliba, but we need our team to go out and do the groundwork to identify somebody who Ruben Amorim actually wants and who actually fits into his system. Besides the midfielders, we've been linked with Benjamin Sesko now up top, seeing that Arsenal will probably sign Victor Gyökeres. I don't think that that's in our financial wheelhouse. I can't see Manchester United paying 70 to 80 million for a striker when we were struggling to pay 60 to 65 million for Bryan Mbeumo.
Well, that's why you make the deal matter. So again, it's not the total, it's the amount you're paying right now. So if I had to guess, I would say that the starting striker against Arsenal will be Benjamin Sesko or Ollie Watkins. It just depends on a final price for Ollie Watkins because of his age, turning 30. And Sesko, I mean, the reason that Arsenal moved on from him and he was their preferred target was that fee. Does the Vavell aspect have a factor? He wanted a release clause with Arsenal. Would he not want one with Manchester United? Maybe, we don't know that. And then, as you mentioned about the midfielders, I think it's Belieber or Wharton in 2026. I think there'll be a more modest spend, like how they're looking at Sene Lamans in goals,
Yeah.
John Victor in goals. I think we're looking at that sort of same value, and there is that value in the central midfield market as well for moderately priced midfielders and goalkeepers. So I would expect both of those to be filled that way.
Do you think that there are any truth to these Emi Martinez links?
Can I just say I hope not? I'm not super keen on it. I just don't think it's worth the outlay. I think there's too much value in the goalkeeper market. It's mostly agent driven, but the club is definitely interested. But I think it's only in the event that Onana leaves. And that's just not going to happen now. So at this point in time, because of his injury, that could change in a month, but there's no buyers. I think the club would have loved to have moved on Mason Mount, Luke Shaw, Andre Onana, but there aren't buyers. So you can only operate in the market that you're given. So I think we're another year away from that. So significant spend on a goalkeeper next year with the sort of number 2 who can challenge for the number 1. Whereas right now with Bayern, they can't.
Yeah. And you spoke about Tom Heaton as well. He looked pretty great yesterday, but I mean the guy's old. He shouldn't be the number 1 for Manchester United in the event that Andre Onana is. I don't know when his return date is. I think it is mid-September. Something that I read.
Well, it's unconfirmed. There's been a bit
Yeah.
that the hamstring isn't as bad as they thought. There's a chance he could start against Arsenal. Let's say hamstrings are tricky, but goalkeeper's not as problematic as, say, an outfield player with a hamstring. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
100%. Last player that I just want to speak about is Rasmus Højlund, and I've been his backer for the past 2 years, and I still pretty much back the guy. I don't think he's a bad player. I think coming into Manchester United at the age of, I think he was 19 when he joined Manchester United about 2 years ago, and he came in. He was given the task of leading the line, being the main man. No experienced striker with him to learn from. No experienced striker to come around and put their arm around him, just to guide him. He's been doing it all on his own. I've seen him get absolutely thrashed online. Fans aren't happy with him, but you have to understand from his point of view, he's trying to lead the line of arguably the biggest club in the world.
It's a bit of a trick. So, obviously the last year has eradicated any confidence that he has. He looked completely shot of it. Certainly struggled yesterday. Again, only 45 minutes, but yeah, I think that it's also fair to say, and it should be said, that the club failed him. They put him into a situation he wasn't ready for, didn't give him a starting striker to rely on, or a veteran striker at least to bail him out. The way that they had to play him with no alternative last season after Joshua Zirkzee got injured, that's a failure on the club, and it's not just on Højlund. And people often forget that when they're sending a torrent of abuse his way. But I think I'm still leaning into the fact that I think he needs a fresh start. I think it's very much still on the table that he could leave the club before the end of the window.
Do you think that a season-long loan could do him like wonders? Say, for example, we get in Benjamin Sesko. Once again, he'll be the only striker at the club. We have people like Mbeumo and Cunha that can play that leading line as well. But essentially, the out and out number 9 would then be Benjamin Sesko. But then Højlund goes out on a season-long loan, gets crazy experience. He'll probably go to a club where there is an experienced striker as well for him to learn from. He comes back, and then you have Højlund and Sesko sort of trying to lead Manchester United into the next few years.
Tricky, mainly because you need a club to pay his wages, a loan fee, which is equivalent to his book value for this year, which is quite for the single year, which is quite high. I mean, it's possible, but I would only see a loan with an obligation at the end of the season because his book value is lower in a year's time. I think the biggest obstacle is that remaining amount, which is around 38. I think it's 38.4 million pounds. So I don't see AC Milan reaching that. I can see them taking a small loss on that. being that AC Milan have sold a lot of players and not bought a lot this summer. I think there's about a 75 million euro difference in their incomings to outgoings. So they have capacity to buy him. I don't think so. I think he either stays or leaves with either a permanent deal now or next summer.
Okay, that's fair enough. Before we wrap up, are there any players that you are hoping just absolutely blast through the ceiling, crashes the roof, heads for the sky during this preseason?
When I read this before we started, I wrote down everyone. But who needs it is probably the most important part, isn't it? So I actually saw Carl Anker ask this sort of question on Twitter yesterday, and I guess it's the people you need to step up. Maybe it's everyone they need everyone. They need everyone to stay fit. But I guess I'm wondering about a few who are staying because they can't find a buyer, or the club just needs more from. So is it Bayern? Is it Luke Shaw? Is it Mason Mount? Manuel Ugarte, can he really step up this season and prove his doubters wrong, which are many? Toby Collier has had an injury-riddled past year. Can he break through and not end up leaving on loan? Rasmus Højlund, like you said, if he stays, he really needs to hit the ground running this season and start rebuilding some confidence. And there's Joshua Zirkzee, who was really starting to get things together before his hamstring injury. So I think there's a variety of those sort of players, and if one sort of has a breakthrough, whether it's just staying healthy in the case of Shaw or Mount, or a player like Ugarte and Collier in midfield, or Højlund and Xerxes up front, that is really what United needs. It's like talking about that. They can be like a new signing narrative. Manchester United could really do with something like that happening this season.
Yeah, and as one of the people that you've omitted in that is Kobe Mainu. I think this season could finally be his time to start shining. We've been speaking about that midfielder that we need. He hasn't really shown that last season since Amorim took over. Amorim tried him in the 10. He tried him as the 9. He's been shuffled around, but I really hope that he nails down a center midfield spot. He's athletic. He's a ball carrier. He has really good football IQ. So I really hope that this preseason does him well, and then starting off the game against Arsenal, he'll be in that starting 11, and he'll be somebody who Manchester United can rely on this season. That's my hope for him, and I think he deserves that. He's a Manchester United fan from young. He's come through the academy. He wants to stay at the club, and I think he's going to be that person who we think that he could be.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think something I've spoken about is I think Kobe was quite protected by Ruben Amorim last season. There was a lot of overreaction. He was his first serious injury as a pro, struggled to get back to match fitness after that. Clearly didn't have the fitness to play that midfield role. You really need an athlete in there. You can see why Bruno Fernandes succeeds because of his endurance and his durability. Kobe Mainu, I've never been too worried about him. A lot of people are like, where's he going to play? Where's he going to play? He's clearly going to play in central midfield. It's just that he can play in the 10 because of his ability to navigate tight spaces. That's why they wanted Matthias Cunha, because of the ball carrying and the dribbling and the ability to, again, operate in tight spaces and create and score. So I'm not too worried about him. And like you, I'm really excited to see what he can do this season.
I love that. Really hope that he comes through for us. Final thoughts. We have West Ham coming up next weekend. That's the first game of our USA tour, in the preseason tour. Anything that you'd like to quickly touch on before we wrap up?
Oh, for the love of God, can everyone just please stay fit? Like, the worst thing to happen with a small squad would be injuries in the preseason. We just can't have that. There's so little room for error with this team, and they really need to get back into the European places. So I think incomings and outgoings will take care of themselves over the next 4 to 5 weeks, 6 weeks before the end of the window. So if the players can just stay fit and they can have a full selection against Arsenal. It sounds like Shea Lacey picked up an injury potentially in training. Don't have full confirmation on what that looks like yet. Can we just have absolute minimum carnage going into the season opener? That's all I want.
I love it. From your lips to the football god's ears. I don't know, we can put it that
Please.
way. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today. It's pretty much heading to evening or to nighttime over in Melbourne. You can plug whatever you have going. Where can the people find you?
No, not much going. Just always ranting, raving, sharing my unfiltered thoughts on the club on Twitter. So Adam Joseph with 4 underscores because it's all I could get to get my name. Yeah, that's about it. You can send me an Instagram request. I probably won't accept it. That's just a personal account. So that's all. It's just me on the app formerly known as Twitter at the moment.
Nice one. And yeah, I am at AF Barker 642 on all social media platforms. I keep it quite universal over there. We also have our 343 football podcast that is live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. South African time. You can find us at Sportycast on all social media platforms as well. We do updates of every single sport, not only football. So that's NBA, rugby, cricket, golf. There's some big golf on this weekend, so you'll find a lot of updates from our account on that front. But yeah, once again, thanks so much, Adam. I appreciate you taking the time out. Hopefully, this is the first and not the last time you'll be on our channel. But yeah, from me, AF, and everybody here at Sportycast, peace.